let's have a round of applause for the 10th Illinois Volunteer Cavalry Regiment. As I said, there's a lot of people to thank and a lot of history here. And we have someone that's, before we give our real thanks, I think it's important to understand the importance of why we're even here, the significance of this. We have with us today Dr. James Cornelius, who's a curator for the Lincoln Collection, Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum. Please welcome Dr. Jim Cornelius.
Mayor, President, distinguished guests. The railroad has always meant a great deal to Springfield. For the next 5 minutes or so, let me try to describe why it was important to Abraham Lincoln and why people here today still recall the arrival of his funeral train on May 3rd, 1865. Lincoln saw Illinois' first train just west of here, the Meredosia to Jacksonville line, in 1836, which reached Springfield the next year. He was 28 years old, so that exactly half of his life was passed in the railroad era. Illinois' land proved excellent for rail, and thanks to the agriculture, commerce, and people of Illinois that filled the lines, railroads became the largest industry in the state. The Illinois Central soon had the largest market capitalization of any company in the U.S. No wonder that a busy attorney like Lincoln would be active in this field. He defended the Illinois Central against counties that claimed taxation power over it that had been barred by the original state charter. He defended small businesses and farmers in their suits against the railroad companies, too. Don't let people tell you that he was a corporation lawyer in a dusty jacket, when in fact he was a man who needed to earn a living and would take cases for most people who asked. On this very line, known then as the Chicago and Alton, he handled a couple of dozen cases. In all, he handled about as many cases for the railroads as against them. He rode the rails to his one term as a congressman in Washington and saw Niagara Falls on the way back. He rode the rails to county seats on the circuit and during parts of the Lincoln-Douglas debates season. He went as far west as Kansas and as far northeast as New Hampshire, thanks to the rails. His family took the train to get to the White House. He took the train to Philadelphia, to Annapolis, into Virginia, to Gettysburg. In 1861, about 2/3 of the railroad mileage in the country lay in the north, and Lincoln grasped the importance of the rails to the Union. He pressed the War Department to use those rails whenever possible, and in 1862, the United States Military Railroads was created, a few miles of it at first, and eventually the largest rail operations in the world by the end of the war, having captured southern railroads and added on to rails throughout. Imagine, before the war, Lincoln won for the largest rail company its biggest tax case ever, and collected by far his biggest fee. And during the war, he oversaw the world's largest railroad operation. Is it fitting or merely sad that such a man should make his final trip on a train? Sadder still that the casket of his boy Willie came with him. Try to envision then the scale of action that Lincoln's funeral triggered. His brother-in-law from his shop on the square ordered by telegraph 30,000 yards of black mourning crepe and sold it to the public at cost to bedeck this city. Another merchant, Hammerslow Brothers, the first Jewish business in Springfield, ordered 30,000 mourning ribbons. Yet another merchant got on a train himself and came back with 3 rail cars loaded with evergreen decorations. This was not enough. An estimated 150,000 people descended upon Springfield, 10 times the city's population. Lincoln's funeral train touched off a miniature production and transportation boom that affected dozens of industries: newspapers, flowers, musical composition, musical performance, photographs, and monument building. Lincoln's funeral was the largest public event in American history. An estimated 8 million people, or about 1/3 of the population of the northern states, saw one of his funerals or saw his train pass by their field or village. Lincoln's funeral may be seen as a test run for the Columbian Exposition in Chicago 28 years later, only instead of 2 years to plan it, as in Chicago, people in Springfield had 2 weeks. The railroad made all that possible. The original plan for the train's route had been to come south on this Chicago-Knowlton line to the junction south of town, then reroute onto the Great Western track and ease in at the depot on 10th Street so that Lincoln could return to the same spot from which he had said farewell in 1861. That idea was changed on the day before the event in favor of a single, dignified stop here, closer to the old state capitol, where public viewing would occur. That decision is why we stand here today. Thousands of people more, I expect, will stand here in the future to recall Lincoln's final journey home. Thank you.
Detail. Thank you. Before we go out and we do the unveiling, I have to tell the kind of Paul Harvey's rest of the story. There's a lady standing next to me by the name of Katie Spindell that isn't even from Springfield, Illinois. She would be the first to admit that she's a transplant to Springfield, Illinois. Moved here several years ago and has done her share of voluntary work, but it was, I have to say, through really her efforts and almost only her efforts are we really here today. And she had fielded so many questions working and visiting greeters in the city of Springfield that everyone wanted to know where was Lincoln's body brought back. They all knew where he gave the farewell address, but no one knew where it was. And it irritated Katie Spindell to the point that she was relentless to come to my office. And Katie's been a good friend, but just relentless that even when something didn't happen in a month or 2 months, she stayed with it. We were able to put this whole thing together, and actually, if it weren't probably for her and for Susan Shelton in my office, we probably wouldn't be here today. I have to say, Mary Green, thank you very much for all the work that Arnold Monument did. It looks absolutely terrific, and it is going to be, it will be here forever. You just did a tremendous job. But the design that Katie helped you with, I think people just need to know where it came from. So with that, before we go outside, I'd like for Katie Spindell to say just a few words. Thank you.